This passage takes place just, pretty soon after the assassination of Kennedy, and Bob has told us about the things that need to be done, sort of left hanging, decisions about railroad featherbedding, about wage price guidelines, political deadlines like the State of the Union address and the budget that needed to be submitted for the next fiscal year, never mind the election of the next year and whether or not Johnson would receive the Democratic Party nomination. Time was running short. And then Bob goes on to say, and this is the passage that I think is really sort of representative and wonderful of something, but we'll have him tell us what. Tangled with and complicating the time factor and every other factor associated with the transition, looming over every aspect of Johnson's ascension to the presidency was one that made that ascension uniquely difficult, a complication that wasn't out of the new age, but seemed rather as if it were out of an age long past, a complication that required to plumb its depths not a Reston, but a Shakespeare. The president, the king, was dead, murdered, but the king had a brother who hated the new king. The dead king's men, the Kennedy men, the Camelot men, made up in Shakespearean terms a faction, and it was a faction that had a leader. An election was coming in less than a year and a convention in 9 months, but due to the faction and the brother, these were not the crucial dates, because if the king's faction and the king's brother decided to contest Lyndon Johnson's right to the nomination, the crucial date would be the primary on March 10th, less than 4 months off. Unprecedented shock and grief and anxiety, unprecedented danger to America and the human race, unprecedented time pressure and problems with staff and cabinet made uniquely difficult by the brother factor. Even Truman's transition problem, Neustadt was to conclude, had been easier than Johnson's. Johnson's situation was extreme. And then it goes on in that particular case. But I think the whole use of Shakespeare, it would take a Shakespeare, not a James Reston, and then the kind of following through with the whole king and the brother's king metaphor, and you do, in a sense, make it like a Shakespearean drama, which I think it's not like, well, then he did this and then he did that and so forth and so on. You sort of step back from the narrative, from the story, yes, and almost tell us another story, or tell us a way to understand the story.
Yes, well, yeah, you picked out, a thing, because you said it. I said it to myself. Those of you who read the book know that Lyndon Johnson and Bobby Kennedy hated each other. When Jack Kennedy offered him the vice presidency, the next day, Bobby Kennedy came down the stairs in the hotel in Los Angeles 3 times to try to get Lyndon Johnson to drop off the ticket. It was the worst. Johnson used to say, that was the worst day of my life and I'll hate him forever. And Bobby Kennedy hated Lyndon Johnson. And I'm researching this and I'm saying, this is Henry IV. When someone comes to write the history of the United States in 500 years, like when we're writing the history, when we're reading Shakespearean plays, this is Shakespearean. The president has been murdered, and the president has a brother, and the brother hates the new king. What's going to happen? Of course, then you can put a lot of things, like 2 days after the assassination, as those of you who have read the book know. Those of you who haven't read it, the test is Tuesday. 2 days after the assassination, Arthur Schlesinger convenes a dinner with Kennedy men. The idea is to deny Lyndon Johnson the nomination in 1964 and make Bobby Kennedy the nominee. And for the rest of Johnson's presidency, Bobby Kennedy is this looming figure of 2 men who truly hate each other. You hate to use a word like hate because it's so strong, but that word is correct.